super excited today to be without question, one of the top mental guys in the game, if not the pioneer of the mental game, Ken Ravizza, who authored Heads Up Baseball, and now he's got the newest version with Heads Up Baseball 2.0. But welcome. If you could come down to just one thing, if you could tell a coach right now listening, what's the most important thing he could teach or that you've learned from the mental game, what would it be?
Make sure.
Lance Wheeler's Mastermind Pitching Program.
Great scientific principle, phenomenal.
More awareness of how your body moves and how it needs to move to increase your velocity.
The work that Lance is doing is outstanding.
He's going to teach you how to take ownership of your own career, and when it comes down to it, that's what really matters when you're in the heat of the game and you have to self-coach. So you're going to get something that you're not going to get with other guys, and I can't recommend it enough.
I mean, to sit here with you, it's exciting. It's awesome
Great
to be
here with you, man. All right.
This is a special treat for me because I've been a big fan of his, and so I walk into the facility and get the chance to interview him. You know, I can't say no to that. So glad to have you, man.
Well, I'm
awesome.
glad you're going to be here to ask me questions. You represent the coaches of America right now.
Well, let's see what we got.
Okay.
When we think about the mental game, what's the first? If somebody was, because you often hear about the mental game, but what does a mental game mean to you?
Great question. I think the mental game has two components to it in the game of baseball. One component of the mental game is the strategy part of the puzzle. What do I do? What's the plan for this situation? For the pitcher, what pitch do I make in this situation? For the hitter, what's going to be my approach at the plate? That's one side of the mental game. The other side of the mental game is self-regulation. I've got to be in control of myself before I control my performance. And I think in the area of sports psychology, that's really where our emphasis is more on making sure the athlete is in control of him or herself when they step in that box, when they toe that rubber. Because some of the strategy stuff, a lot of that is between the player and the coach.
Sure.
And that isn't necessarily the sports psych person's expertise. So I want to bring the player to that opportunity so that they're fully functioning, their head is clear, and they're able to do what they do in the pressure situation that they do in their practice and training.
Good one. If you were to give somebody 3 tips, a player at any level, 3 tips on how to be better at that, what would they be?
First thing would be long haul. Know why you play the game and what your passion is for the game. Because when you know why you're playing the game and what you love about the game, it's going to help you sustain your motivation over the duration of the period you're playing. So why you play the game is a critical first question for me. Second would be that you've got to learn how to regulate yourself and be in control of yourself before you try controlling your performance. The third thing would be the use of routines. The at-bat begins before it begins. What's your routine? What's your funneling in process that gets you so that you may not have consistency of results, but you have consistency of your approach and that routine you go through before your performance. So while you play the game, regulating yourself and having good routines.
When you see the good players from the great mental, the guys with a really good mental game, what's the difference between the guys that are able to perform at a higher level versus the ones that can't?
A lot of it's ability.
If we had both guys on the same
level. If the ability
level.
balances out, it's the guys that know themselves, know what it's like to perform with their A game, their B game, and their C game. And when they have their C game or their B game, they're not panicking and wish they had their A game, but they're getting it done with what they got, and they know how to do that.
How important is criticism or being able to accept criticism, failure, and how do you respond to that? If somebody were to fail, like a kid had a really bad game, what would be your first thing that you would tell this kid?
Well, I think one of the things is whenever you perform in athletics, you're going to get immediate feedback on how you did. Whether it's a gymnast, did she stay on the balance beam, did she fall off? The figure skater, did she make the jump, didn't she make the jump? The baseball player, did I get my result, didn't I get my result? Okay, you're going to get immediate feedback. Feedback is information. Sometimes we fail, but we can learn from that information to get better. The key becomes how I use what just happened to me and how I use that information to get better for the next time I approach it. To just be stuck in, I got my result, I didn't get my result, it's too crazy, it's too intense, it puts too much damn pressure on it. And I've heard Augie Garrido talk about this, and he talks about the difference between results and outcome. Outcome is a closed deal. We won, we lost, successful, unsuccessful. Results are information. How do I use that information to get better? And that's key for me, is how you use the information from your performance to get better. If you practiced, you took 3 hours that day to go through your practice and training, what did you learn from that practice and training today to get better? Because if you didn't learn anything, just because you were out there working hard, it doesn't matter. What matters is there's something you learned from what you did today. Now, what helps with that is having a mission going into practice, having some type of plan, something you're working on. When you take that bullpen, what am I working on today to get better? So then you can use that as a benchmark, and then other things may come up in the midst of it, and you make those adjustments and you evaluate and you critique. Are you going to fail? Absolutely. Failure is part of learning. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. I think we get too hung up on, I got to be successful all the time. No, you got to take the risks of fail to get better.
That was brilliant. Well, if you were a coach in today's game, whether it be high school or college, what would you stress about the mental game? What would be, if you had 10 minutes to practice the mental game each day set aside, what would that include?
The major thing I would stress is for the athlete to be able to think clearly and use the information from his performance to get better, and not personalize it and not beat himself up because he didn't do well. That doesn't mean he or she's a terrible, rotten person. All it means is they didn't perform well at that time. Get the information, forgive yourself, and play forward. Get the information, forgive yourself, play forward. Next pitch. But you do have to take the time to get the information. This is not just about flushing it, letting it go, and moving on. No, get the information. Key.
So just learning from your failures is a big part of the mental game, right?
Absolutely.
So how big is breathing? How integral is breathing to mental and the physical component?
For me, the breath is a very powerful tool because it represents so much. One, it's a behavior that you can see. As a coach, you can see whether the player is stepping out, taking his or her breath, and you can at least see they're doing that. And it sounds so simple, but it's so hard to do. But what does the breath do? Number one, the breath brings oxygen to the brain, into the blood supply, which brings oxygen to the brain, which helps you think clearly. Number one. Number two, the breath will always pull you to the present moment. Inhale, exhale. It helps get you back. The breath, when you need to relax a little bit, focus on the exhalation. When you need energy, focus on the inhalation. So that you can sort of regulate yourself just with your breathing by bringing energy in when you need it, letting energy go out. The breath helps you shift from consciously thinking to just doing. Inhale, exhale. Let go of the thinking and move to the doing. The breath. Good breath is the start of good rhythm. Good rhythm is so critical, but it's got to begin with good breath. So you asked the question about breath, Lance. In my 9 Olympic Games that I've been involved with, 6 Summer Olympics, 3 Winter Olympics, the major feedback I've gotten from athletes when we debrief their experience and I ask them, what did you get out of our work together? The overwhelming reaction from athletes that I've worked with has been, Ken, the breathing helped so much. Because when the pressure was on, I had something to go to that could pull me into the moment and gave me a very basic fundamental skill that I could use in that intense situation.
Now, how often should someone practice breathing? Should it be part of the daily process?
Ideally, if you could spend 5 minutes just sitting, and especially in this day and age where it's very hard for people to just sit without having their phones and all the other things, but to just sit and watch your breath for maybe just 5 minutes to just relax and quiet down. You may not even get to the breath watching part, but just sit by yourself for maybe 5 minutes and just calm yourself down. And if you can start doing that on a regular basis, fantastic, fantastic. Does it have to be every day? No. I think for me, what I've always told people, don't make this a should. Do it because you want to do it. And build on the little bit that you do, and stop beating yourself up for what you didn't do. But do what you're doing and validate yourself for doing that.
What would you tell a parent of a kid or something that's dealing with a coach that's maybe really tough, or they're having some issues as far as they're being told to change this or change that? How do you deal with a situation like that, to where maybe you practice this, but then when you go in, the coach is totally against it?
Your question is, how do you deal with a coach who's trying to make changes?
Yeah. If it's something that you don't, he doesn't believe in the breath, or he doesn't believe everything's physical, nothing's mental, he doesn't ever give you a chance to work the mental. What would be your?
Then what you would have to do is, that's something you're going to have to do on your own, and you're going to have to be developing your system to make it work for you, because no one has to know what you're doing. I mean, but you know that, hey, I'm in control of myself. And I can do that without the coach even knowing. Now, if the coach can support you, that's fantastic, because it needs reinforcement. It's the thing I find when I work with teams. My goal is to coach the coaches so that the coaches can be reinforcing this. Now, if the coach isn't going to be into it, then you realize that and you work as best you can in that situation, because I'm sure if you're with that coach, he or she has some other skills that are pretty good, or you're an idiot to be with that coach.
So basically, at the end of the day, the mental game's a choice. It's up to you, right?
Yeah, you get to choose.
Now, how important is a journal to success or developing the mental game?
I think the journals and writing stuff down, for some people, that's very important. For other people, it's not their thing. And once again, on a lot of this mental game stuff, there is not a cookie cutter, and this is the way you do it. This is the way you do it. You've got to know yourself and come up with a system that works for you. But one thing I always did with the athletes I've worked with, and especially at the university level, is they're going to keep a journal for a while just to see how it goes, you know, so that you sort of push them to take that leap of trying to get some of these things written down. But for some, they're going to get more into it than others. And that's an individual difference. But the real skill we're teaching is the act of reflection, the act of learning from my experience. That I take a few moments and I just settle down and I ask myself, what did I learn from that today? And sometimes writing it down, it's nice when you can go back and read, hey, this is what I thought at that time.
So now, how important is believing you're a good player? Confidence, belief, where does that come into the mental game?
I think confidence has a huge role, Lance, but for me, there are so many times you play the game, man, and the confidence isn't there. I think sometimes we get overrated that, and I've been around enough professional and college athletes, swagger, gotta have swagger, I got swagger. I mean, I've worked with these people. Confidence is fragile for all of us as human beings. Let me say that again. Confidence is fragile. No one's got their self all together. We all have our frailties. It's called being human, okay? But the issue is, do you have something to go to when you're not feeling great? So a question, Lance, I'm always asking players is, are you that crappy you have to feel great and be confident to perform well? I haven't thought about that.
Yeah.
Well, let's stop worrying about the confidence And let's get back to, this is what I need to do when I'm putting on my batting gloves. This is what I need to do when I'm in the hole. This is what I need to do when I'm on deck. And this is the way I'm going to get in, and I'm going to take possession of that batter's box. And when I'm in that batter's box, I own that batter's box. And sometimes you got to talk your way through it. That's part of the dance, man. Yeah, but you can't be freaking out that I don't feel good. I don't feel right. Feeling good's overrated.
So would you say that, like say during the World Series, is it the guys that are really playing to a higher level, are they performing at a higher level due to the stress, or is it the idea of the others caving and lowering their game?
Great question. When you look at the World Series, you're looking at 162 games, and these teams now 11 playoff. They're about 173, 174 games. No one there feels great. Your body's beat up, you're beat up, mentally you're exhausted, and you're grinding, man. And yep, you're going to win some pitches, you're going to lose some pitches. But can you get to the next pitch because you're one pitch away? And you see it there. Hey, the confidence just in the last couple games, the ebbs and flows. Dodgers up 3, boom. Houston's back. Dodgers down, boom. They battle. It's about taking those blows, absorbing those blows, and giving jabs. And you give the jabs by doing the basic little things and doing them with 100% of what you got to execute that skill.
Wow, that's powerful. What about a pre-pitch routine? What are your thoughts on a pre-pitch routine? What would it include? How important is it?
Absolutely, pre-pitch. Because when we look at routines, you have your routines going into your performance, during the performance, the actual skill execution, and then the coming out. So it's like in baseball where you have a pitch that lasts, okay, the pitch is made, boom, strike. You got 15 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, next pitch. And in the World Series, it's up to 25, 30 seconds, all right? Mm-hmm. But that time between pitches, that's where the mental game lives, Lance. When does the last pitch end and the next pitch begin? It's going to vary after each pitch, based upon if that's a successful pitch right where I want it, bam, I'm on the next pitch really quick. But let's say that ball's up and away, I've got to think about that pitch, get the information from the pitch, and quickly, maybe 4 seconds, make the adjustment in my mind and what I need to do to get to the next pitch. So that next pitch begins before it begins, okay? Now, we have the landmarks like putting your foot on the rubber, meaning I'm ready, I'm here, I'm on this pitch. But before you put your foot on the rubber, you can be on the last pitch a little while if you need to. But now I'm on this pitch. So the pre-pitch routine is to get me so I'm right here, right now, ready to give 100% of what I got to win this pitch, to win this at-bat, to win this game, whichever way we want to break that down. But it begins before it begins, and it ends after it ends.
What about your thoughts on body language? You see a lot of kids. That was one of the things I would watch a lot, but just body language. How powerful, how does it affect others?
Body language is huge because everyone can see it. Hitters, the on-deck guys are watching pitchers. Hitters are like sharks, man. They smell blood, and when that pitcher's bleeding, their batting averages go up. Their confidence goes up. But the key for me is when he toes the rubber, what's the body language? Is he present? Is he focused? Is he in? He may have his momentary where he's a little upset, and he may show that a little bit. Let's not overdo it. But then there's the release of that, and then when I get back, this is my rubber. You get in your box, buddy. Yeah. I'm coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and every guy's a little different, Lance. Every guy's a little different. Some they pitch like their personalities. Some guys are more emotional. Some guys are more intense. Some are the silent assassins. Yeah. You know, they do it in a gentle way. There's many ways to get it done. The key is knowing what's your way.
And how important is it for your coaches to really have a history or know know the pitcher, treat them, or coaching them the mental game differently?
I think it's critical, and it's one of the things that's changing in teaching and coaching, is that now we're being more sensitive and aware of the individual differences, that people have different styles and different personalities, and we've got to take that person from where they are and sort of move them along to get better at what they're trying to do, but we all start in different places. And I think I've seen just in the last 15 years dramatic changes with coaches being more tuned into that, and I'm really excited about that.
If you could come down to just one thing, if you could tell a coach right now listening, what's the most important thing he could teach or that you've learned from the mental game, what would it be?
Make sure they're breathing. Sometimes, just when you're talking with them, settle them down. Just make sure they can breathe. Because if they can't breathe, they're not going to hear what you're saying. And so that if I can be in control of me, then I got a chance that I can think clearly. And then once I can think clearly and commit to it, then I have a chance of going out and doing it. Yeah.
Oh, that's powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful.